Let's get this meeting going. I will open the meeting. It's Linda. It's 4:06 p.m.
Okay.
Let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of
America
and to the
republic which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to 1.2, adopt the agenda. Are there any adjustments, corrections to the agenda as posted?
I have none.
Sherry, do you want to change it to put that on the agenda proper?
No, we'll just put it in the minutes this time.
Okay.
All right. If there are no objections to adopting the agenda as posted, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca?
Aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Jerry, they haven't been sworn in yet, so I don't think they vote on that. I think you swear them in first, and then they'll vote on the next items.
I was just going to ask that question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. And nonetheless, Linda, I vote yes.
Okay.
So the agenda is adopted as posted. So 1.3, swearing in of the new board members. So both Jeff and Kevin, if you will stand and raise your right hand. So repeat after me. I, your name,
I, Kevin Bradford,
do solemnly swear or affirm
could you repeat that?
or affirm
Or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and the Constitution of California against all foreign enemies.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
That I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservations. And I missed the last part.
I did too. Purpose of evasion.
purpose of evasion,
and purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well
and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and to discharge
discharge the duties when I'm about to enter.
Welcome aboard. Welcome to the NUCS Board of Directors. Okay, so the next part is to make a determination as to who will fill the 2-year vacancy and who will fill the 3-year vacancy. How this will work out is Linda has 2 envelopes. One has a short straw and one has a long straw. The long straw represents the 3-year term. The short straw represents the 2-year term. Prior to the meeting, I spoke with Director Sherry and told her to pick a number between 1 and 15. The individual who comes closest to the number will choose first. Is that understood?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we'll start with Jeff. Pick a number between 1 and 15.
7.
Repeat that.
7.
Thank you. Kevin.
I'll go with 8.
All right. Jeff has chosen the number 7, and Kevin has chosen the number 8. Sherry,
The number was
please
4.
tell us what number. All right.
So Jeff's closest.
Very good. So, Jeff, you choose the envelope.
And it may be hard to
either
see, but one says
Linda's-
left and one says right. Linda,
Right.
it's hard to
That's
see.
what I'm good
The
at.
left
It's getting
envelope.
ready. So, Jeff, choose an envelope. Left envelope or right envelope?
Left.
Linda, will you please
Okay,
reveal what is in the left envelope?
okay, I have
And-
my left envelope. And in order to tell what's shorter, so Jeff pulled the long one and Kevin has the short one.
Okay.
So Jeff is the 3-year? Is that what you
So-
said, Jerry?
Jeff, yes, Jeff, based upon these results, Jeff will fill the 3-year vacancy, which the term expires in December 2021. And Kevin fills the vacancy whose term expires 12/20/20. Okay?
Yep.
We all good?
Yes.
Congratulations, you guys.
Okay.
It's official.
Moving on. Yeah. It's official.
All right.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, item number 2, the student presentation. Due to the shelter-in-place order, this item's being postponed. Moving on to item 3, the consent agenda. 3.1, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for NU-Humboldt Charter School. 3.2, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for NU-Siskiyou Charter School. 3.3, consideration of approval of minutes from the April 7 and April 23rd, 2020 board meetings. Is there any comment about the items in the consent agenda or corrections? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a question. It's on the Humboldt side in the warrants. It's warrant number 099846 on page 3, the bill to YM&C. It's $4,634. Do you have a rough breakdown from that? I guess I'm wondering if that's from all of our recent litigation or if it's something else.
Without looking at the invoice that, the specific invoice that went for that batch, I couldn't tell you which it is. The bills for the due process were not separated out from our regular billing from Young Indian Corps, though they give us an itemized invoice. So it would be easy to add it up. If you wanted me to add up what that ended up costing, the due process, is that what you're interested in? I could easily do it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. I'll make a note for that.
No rush, but I am very curious as to how that.
Yeah. It would be a good thing to see. I was kind of wondering that too. I'm not 100% sure that all of the billing is complete for that, but I bet it's pretty close.
Okay.
So when will this be presented, Jere?
I'll present it at the June board meeting.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Anything further?
I don't have anything further.
I don't either.
Nor I.
Jeff, Kevin?
All right.
Neither I.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Who seconded?
Jeff did.
We're jumping right in, Jeff and I.
I like that.
Now that we're officially can vote on things, yeah.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca?
Aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Let me take just a brief moment for our new board members to explain how this works. So due to the Zoom meeting Brown Act for this teleconferencing, we're required to do a roll call voice vote for every action we take. So as opposed to some normal settings where everybody just shouts out aye or raises their hand, we're required to do the roll call voice vote. So, and I try to keep the same pattern. It just works out easier for me. So hope that makes sense now. Moving on to item number 4, public comments on items not on the agenda. Under this item, the public is invited to address the board regarding items that are not on today's agenda. Please keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. The board is not allowed under the law to take action on matters that are not on the agenda. Should comments come from the public pertain to a charge or complaint against an employee of the Northern United Humboldt Charter School or Northern United Siskiyou Charter School, the board encourages the speaker to utilize the school's written complaint procedures to pursue the matter. The public will have an opportunity to comment on all agenda items as those are heard. Moving on to item 5, action items to be considered. 5.1, approval of Siskiyou County Office of Education, or SCOE, business services contract for NUCS.
I have
Jere?
a question about this. The amount that we are being charged, is it the same, more or less, that from our last contract?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. So I was just going to
Jere?
say that this, we have, and for the new board members' benefit too, on the Humboldt side, Tammy does the school's budget. She's the one that does all of the first interim, the second interim, and the annual budget for the Humboldt school. But for the Siskiyou school, Siskiyou County Office of Education does our business services. They're the ones that do our budget. And that was actually a requirement of theirs for them to take us on as a charter school. For them to be our authorizer, we had to agree that they would do our business services. We definitely discussed this during the course of this year, not having, asking them, approaching them and asking them if we could take it on ourselves. We feel like, well, I guess I shouldn't say we, I think that they had some bumps in the road this year with doing our budget. They had a lot of staffing problems. That's a small office anyway at Siskiyou County Office of Ed, and they ended up losing quite a bit of staff, having turnover for various reasons in their fiscal services department. And so because of that, there were definitely some times where we had late documents. You guys remember as that was happening. But I do feel like they have gotten that squared away pretty well now. They're fully staffed. And for second interim, which we adopted a few months ago, they were completely on time for that. And I anticipate them being on time for annual. And you'll see when we get to my report, I was going to talk about the economy of the fiscal state of the state of California. And I think going into this kind of uncertain fiscal time, it's just kind of behooves us to go ahead and stay with somebody who knows our budget as they do right now. That and one other reason why I think, why my recommendation is to go ahead and stay with them for this upcoming year is I really still feel like it's important for us to try to have as good of a relationship with them as possible. And I think, because of what happened with our SB 740 funding determination, you may remember that we didn't qualify for SISCU, so we had to ask for a mitigating circumstance. Does that sound familiar? I don't know if you guys remember that or not. We had to apply for what's called a mitigating circumstance, which is like special consideration to give us our full funding. And the reason we gave was the staffing issues at Siskiyou County Office of Ed. While they supported us giving that, ultimately gave approval for using that as our reason, I don't think they were very happy about it. And I just want to be sure to maintain a good relationship with them. So I don't think this is the time to approach them to, ask them if we could go another route. So anyway, that's just kind of my little background on that. And any questions?
Oh.
Sherry and I spoke about this beforehand, and it just makes a very clear sense to stick with them. Yes, we had some rocky experiences with them last year, but as Sherry has indicated, the feeling is that they've got those issues worked out, and it's strategically, at this time, it is probably wise, very wise, to stick with them for our Siskiyou budget. If there are no further questions or comments, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the business services contract with Siskiyou.
I'll make that motion to approve the contract with Siskiyou Office of Ed.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the SCOE business services contract for NUSCS. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca?
She actually left the meeting. She's entering again now. I'm not sure what happened. There she is.
I don't know what happened either. You froze on my screen sharing, and I kept hearing a click, and then my computer shut off. So,
Oh.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm back.
So, Bianca, we're voting on the approval. A motion's been made and seconded to approve the SCOS business services contract for NUSCS. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca?
Aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And I also approve. Motion carries. Moving on to 5.2, approval of A+ contract services agreement for NUHCS. Sherry?
So A Plus is an organization that is specifically for charter schools like us, which are independent study, non-classroom based charter schools. They are an advocacy group, and they lobby the state on behalf of charter schools that are structured in the way that we are structured. They also offer professional development and consulting They do a conference every year where, you know, when we send staff there, we get a discount when we're a member of the organization. And it's an important conference for our teachers to go to because it is the only conference in the state that is put on for independent study teachers. So often, if our teachers go to professional development, say that the county office offers, it's specifically designed for classroom teachers, teachers who are sitting in a classroom, all 25 of their students are the same grade level in front of them, and they're, you know, they maybe have other teachers on campus that teach the same grade level they do. And it doesn't always apply to an independent study model. And so this organization specializes in what we do. So it's always benefited us to be a member. In addition to the benefits it provides our teachers, just I want to give another example of something that we've used them for recently that was very helpful, and that was that SB 740 funding determination. So with non-classroom based charter schools, they have to apply for their funding, unlike traditional site-based schools, and the application is the funding determination. And when we apply for that, we get a lot of support from A+, because this is their area of expertise. And in this most recent time, when we did not meet the funding requirements for that, the director of A+ got on the phone with me and helped me work on the mitigating circumstances that ultimately was successful, and we did get the 100% funding. So while this is an expense at a time where, you know, I'm very cautious of any kind of extra expenditure, I do still recommend joining. Because we have 2 schools, we do get a break on the cost, and that you'll see that one reflected in the next item for Siskiyou. So we get 1 charge for Humboldt and then a lesser charge for Siskiyou because it's kind of like a group rate because we have 2 schools.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Questions, comments?
I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Just one question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this an annual contract, a yearly?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And it's just up for renewal for
Okay.
next year. Mm-hmm.
Just didn't know the length of the contract.
What do you mean, Sherry, 25 students? What about 33 students
Exactly.
in a classroom?
Yeah, I know. It's true. My first year of teaching, I taught kindergarten. I had 30 kindergartners and no aide.
This is, I suppose potentially this is one of those things that falls into a unique category due to the unique circumstances that we are beginning to head into as we look ahead down the road, you know, with so many unknowns. And I just want to ask a difficult question. Is this a want or is this a need?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And I've thought the same thing. You know, it's definitely a want and not a need. We don't need it. And there are other organizations that we belong to, CSDC, for example, which is the Charter School Development Center. And that one I do not want to renew for this upcoming year because we're having to make cuts. We're definitely having to cut back on our expenditures. This is something we could do without. I think that it is, of all the organizations we belong to, this is definitely the one that I would want to keep of any of them, but it's a want and not a need. And, you know, the other option is to only maybe sign up for one school and not both. But of course, what that means is then, say we signed up for Humboldt, or we signed up for just Siskiyou, then teachers from the other school, when they went to the conference, we wouldn't get the discount. Though, to be quite honest, I doubt we're sending anybody to a conference this year. This is going to be a year of, no traveling, no professional development. So I could go either way. Let's ask Tammy her thoughts. Not to put Tammy on the spot, but if we're having, and Kirk too, you jump in. I mean, if we're having to make cuts, is this a good place to cut?
This is for the A+ now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, like you say, for me, I would want to keep it, but as you say, it's not a need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add that they were very helpful when we were applying for the grant. They, some advice that was provided to me by Jeff really helped, I think, get the grant the second time we applied.
Here's another thing on, they were great for the SB 740, but we don't apply for that every year. So we could maybe get this every other year.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They were very helpful with renewal as well. But again, we're not renewing this year.
Right.
I guess part of it kind of feels a little lame to like cut and run when we don't need them,
Mm-hmm. Especially when we had such good success because of them.
Yeah.
How much is it?
The Humboldt is 5,000 something, and Siskiyou is 1,200. Humboldt is 5,225, and Siskiyou is 1,244. They charge based on ADA. Plus, we get a 50% discount for the second school. So that's why the discrepancy.
How much are we saving by not renewing the other contract that you were talking about?
CSDC, I'm not sure how much that is. I haven't seen the contract yet this year, so it's been a year since I looked at that. So I can't recall. Tammy, I don't know if you have any memory of it at all.
No,
I'm just gonna guess it's probably around 5,000 would be my guess.
Well, there you go. That's a good question.
That's Eric Premack's organization. Yeah.
A+.
Yeah, I want to bring this up. Go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to say A+ is also very helpful in the fact that, as Sherry said, they only deal with charter. So any laws that have been passed, they're always right on top of that. They give us great, insight into what's happening with charter law. I would agree that it is probably not a need, so to speak, but they are the one organization that I know that I really appreciate that we have.
Yeah.
And if we are considering only one to renew, perhaps this is the one.
Well, we could consider none too.
That's true.
I mean, that's the option. Because even if we choose not to keep A+, I'm not going to keep CSDC, not this year. They're just not, they're a charter organization for all charters, which means including site-based charters. So it's just not as relevant to us.
Not the fit we want.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another thing, if we do get rid of some, keep one, this would be a good one to keep just for our employees because they are charter. We're not giving them an increase this year. These could be the pluses that we keep for them.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Thank you, Tammy, and that is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know a whole lot about A+ at this point in time, but I guess my feeling is, just listening to you guys, this year's going to be more uncharted than you guys have ever faced, and it would be kind of nice to have them in the pocket, specializing in what's going to happen. And I'm sure there's going to be some changes federally. There's going to be changes statewide. It'd be nice to have somebody on top of that. Not that the school's not, but in my mind, it's a good investment.
Yeah. Jeff is able to reach out to other members to provide templates or advice or guidance from, one who's been successful doing something to another. It's kind of a networking thing that benefits us, I think.
That's true, Kurt. That's very true.
Any other comments? See, the reason I bring this up at this time is I want us to start getting in the mindset as we move forward next month, return after the July break, to start taking a long, hard look at what we're authorizing money to be spent on. Now, it's not all done in a vacuum. I know this from previous times that both Jere and Tammy are going to work really closely together, putting together scenarios as we move forward. Also, right now, there are so many unknowns, and we're hoping we'll get a little more information next month. We're hoping to get a little bit more information come August, and it's going to be ever evolving. And while I've always been a huge proponent of conferences and staff development, I venture to say one of the areas that we're going to have to cut back on is sending people to conferences. And so, the advantage of being a member and having staff attend and get a discount seems to be not in the cards, because I don't see us authorizing sending us, our Jere, sending staff members to conferences. And is it possible that just for 1 year that we can do without? Certainly, there are going to be many other sacrifices as we tighten our belt, so to speak. It's just one of those. The way I look at it, this is the first of many hard decisions to come. And having said that, and if there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question, a comment. When do we actually have to sign or not this contract? That's part one. And if we were so inclined to want to continue it, could we wait until the 11th hour, so to speak, until Tammy and Jere have had an opportunity to hone in on the prospective budget for the fall or for next year?
So we could wait to do this up. My thought is up until June 30th. The reason that's when the contract ends, the current one. The reason we do it earlier is because we get a discount by doing it early. So we'll miss the discount if we wait. But something else that, and Tammy and I mean, really, we're going to make our best guesses of what we need to cut, between now and when the budget is adopted. But we won't really know till probably September or something.
Exactly.
But anyway, something else I was going to say about this is what they've already started doing, A+ and other organizations as well, is just offering their professional development online. So like the conference will be online. And right now they have regional meetings that happen that Kirk and I occasionally attend, like when they come up to this region. And those are all online right now. Everybody's just switching to online PD.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then in theory, we could table this until our June meeting when perhaps we have a better financial picture.
Yeah, it would just cost more if we did that.
Mm-hmm. How much more? Do you know?
I think it was a 10, it might say in there, but it might not. I want to think it was like 15% discount by doing it early. I could look in my email and find it pretty quickly.
Oh, no.
But anyway, I think it was like, you know, a 15% or something break by getting it in early.
And given the state of the state, maybe they would honor that discount if we were to sign later on.
They might.
Because I can't imagine that we are the only district that is wondering, do we do this or do we cancel for a year?
Right.
And if everybody cancels for a year, I mean, it's not our problem, I guess, but if everybody cancels for a year, then will they even be around anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. And it wouldn't be a year, it'd be 2 years. Just as you'll hear in my report, it's 21-22 is going to be worse than 2021. So it wouldn't be just 1 year. But anyway, I just looked, it's a 5% discount, 5% break for doing it early.
Well, it sounds to me, even though we do have some tough decisions to make, it does sound to me, even though this is a want as opposed to a need, it sounds pretty positive all the way around that we truly do benefit.
We definitely benefit. There's no doubt about that. You know, is it worth it? It's like a cost analysis, cost benefit analysis. Is it worth it? It has been up until now. You know, if we had not gotten 100% on our SB 740 funding determination, we would be out a lot more money than this.
Right.
So it's kind of like, is it a pound foolish kind of thing, or, you know?
Yeah.
But it's up to you guys. You guys just make whatever motion you think, and, you know, we'll be fine either way.
I'm hearing crickets.
I know, I'm waiting for a response. I can't initiate it. You know that.
Is it possible, say, at any time in the year we could bring them back on board, even if we're mid-budget, if we have the monies? Or is it, you know, it's got to wait 2 years to do this again?
Oh, no, we could sign up at any time. I think they would just prorate it. Like if we, you know, it runs the fiscal year. So July 1 to June 30th. So if we, you know, said we wanted to become a member halfway through the year, we would be charged half of the price.
Well, that's not such a bad scenario then.
Okay, somebody make a motion to, okay, let me help you. So, I mean, obviously, we could approve it. Next, we could not take action right now, and then it would roll over to June. Another option that the door was opened by doing it on into the year would be to take no action at this time, but wait until, further on into the school year when we have more financial information as to our standing. So.
Let me ask one thing.
Or-
Kurt, do you recall, is this something that the grant pays for?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I have to remind you, they sure helped us get that $500,000 grant, 2 of them.
Yeah.
I will look into that and see if we paid it last year.
Yeah, out of the grant.
Yeah.
Well, then I'd like to make the motion that we table this and forego the opportunity for the discounts till we get more information.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Do we lose the 5% only, or the 5% and the 50%?
Just the 5%.
Okay.
Any
Can
other
we put this on,
comments?
back on the, Kevin had said until we get more information. Could we put that, as Jerry said, on next month's agenda in hopes that we do have more information?
Sure.
Is that what you meant, Kevin?
Yes, when I said tabled, I should have said to carry it to the next meeting. So I'll amend that motion to say as such.
And I'll still second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Linda, let's see if we can follow this. It's been moved and seconded to table the approval of the A+ contract services agreement for Northern United Humboldt Charter School until next month, hoping that we'll have more financial information. Okay.
Okay, well, there's 2 motions on the table. One died because there wasn't a vote taken. That was the one to table it, because then Kevin amended it right away. So there's 2 motions. The first one,
Okay.
nothing happened to, and then there's the amended motion that would read that he amended to carry over the approval of the A+ service agreement contract for Northern United Humboldt Charter School to the June meeting. So that's the one.
Okay,
that
Kevin.
is being voted on.
Right. Kevin, you'll need to withdraw that original
I'll withdraw
motion.
that original motion.
Okay.
All right. So now we can proceed.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca,
Aye.
Rosemary,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Motion, and I vote aye. Motion carries. 5.3, approval of the A+ contract services agreement for NUCS. All the previous discussion is still relevant to and for the contract with Siskiyou Charter School. So is there a need for any more discussion or comments?
I don't have any.
None.
Do I?
I have nothing else.
I have a question for Sherry.
Linda?
The Siskiyou one is considerably cheaper, right? It was 1,000 and something.
Right.
So if we just approved that one, could we coin all of our questions that we may have in the upcoming year to just incorporate Siskiyou, or are our questions definitely either Northern United Humboldt or Northern United Siskiyou?
Well, it's only so much cheaper because we get a 50% discount for having 2 schools. So the price would go up if we just did the one. It still would be cheaper because they do it based on ADA, and it's a smaller school, so it would be a little bit cheaper than what the Humboldt one itself would be, but it would go up from what this is.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anything else to be said?
I don't think so. I'll make a motion
No.
to table the A+ contract services agreement for NUSCS until the June meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Bianca?
Aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Kurt, I'm really disappointed that we had to do this. I completely understand the value of such organizations, but it's like for this coming year, all bets are off, so to speak. So nothing personal. All right, moving on. 6 to the reports. 6.1, enrollment and attendance report.
So I was just going to say this will actually be, well, I don't know if it'll be the last one you see. You can continue to see that. You can see it next month, but it'll be exactly the same because you remember we have stopped taking attendance as school is officially closed. So the attendance ending March 20th, which is what you see here, that's the last of the attendance. So there will not be anything in the next few lines. So you know, if you want, I'll put this on the agenda again next month, but it would be the exact same information. So I just kind of wanted to draw that to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions or comments?
90 seems really low. 90%. Yeah.
It is. It's very low. You know, we try to have 95% or better. 95% is what the state wants to see. That's kind of like the target for the state. So 90% is very low.
And
it was kind of lower than our benchmark all year on the Siskiyou side.
Yeah. Any particular reason? Thoughts why it?
Yeah, a lot of it. We had some kids that really struggled with independent study, you know, throughout the year, different kids. And I think we were a little slow at times on our missed assignment policy and, you know, really forcing kids who just aren't doing well to, you know, step up to the plate or be gone, sort of thing, you know. So I think we need to tighten that up next year. But it was just a number of kids.
Keep in mind too with Siskiyou, contrasting it to Humboldt, the majority of the kids in Siskiyou are a little more traditional independent study than the majority of kids on the Humboldt side. So you know how, Bianca, at Pine Grove, it looks a little more traditional. Most of Humboldt's that way, like a 4-day-a-week thing. And then teachers are seeing the students every day. And so therefore they're completing work and getting attendance. When you have the kind of more traditional independent study, the requirement is we see a student once every 20 days. So if a teacher sees a student at the meeting they're supposed to, or if the family and the students skip a meeting, then the next time they're scheduled to see them, a month could have passed by. And if they come with no work, that means now they have 0 attendance for that month. And so that's one of those issues that are always difficult for independent study schools in general, is the fact that you're just not seeing students that often. And our attendance is 100% based on work completed. So if a month comes, where you go to meet with your student and that student flaked for whatever reason that month, now they have 0 attendance. And so it's definitely a lot harder with the traditional independent study to keep the attendance up. For the most part, we see students more frequently than that, but the ones that are the most rural and that live like in the farthest outskirts are the ones that, this tends to happen with.
Yeah, a few months ago, when this was brought to my attention, I ran a report of the attendance at different learning centers, and you're correct, Sherry, if you look at just Pine Grove,
right,
the attendance was always 100%.
Probably 98 or something.
Yeah, 99, 100, all the time, just full attendance, because they're there all the time and getting things done. Whereas most of our other students are, like Sherry said, see their teachers much less often.
We see the same discrepancy in how students score on the standardized test as well. Those who are coming like every day, on a really regular basis, have a lot of contact with teachers, outperform those who have very little contact with their teachers. And over the course of our existence, seeing that's the reason why we have so many facilities, because we have seen that it just amounts to a better education to try to get the kids as frequently as you can. But we serve that niche for those who are in really rural locations or have, a particular lifestyle that makes it hard for them to come in. And so this is one of those realities. Not that we can't improve it, but that is, kind of the trend for independent study.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Sure.
What would be, I guess the trend is kind of zooming anyway. How hard would it be to implement maybe a interim Zoom between that month you're talking about, and just kind of seeing where they're at?
Yeah, for the most part that happens. Like I said, the majority of our teachers meet weekly with their independent study students. And it's interesting because this whole shutdown is one of the things that has been very apparent to the state with this shutdown, is the inequities in our students. We definitely have students that have and those that do not have. And the ones that tend to be rural and have attendance issues and not get work done are the ones that tend to not have internet connection, live in a place where there's no cell reception. And so, those are the kinds of realities that we're working with, and we do what we can to mitigate that. We give hotspots, for people who live someplace where they have cell reception. We have paid for people's satellite internet in case they lived someplace where they couldn't get cell or couldn't get internet as well. So we've tried, all of those kinds of things. And it definitely helps. It definitely helps. There have been times where our attendance has been much lower when we had more independent study students. But yeah, we definitely do that, Jeff. We meet, often as possible. And it really just kind of boils down to what you can get the family to commit to.
Well, thank you for the
Sure.
explanation there, and very good questions. Just as Bianca inquired, I was curious. I noted straight away the 90%, and I was curious as to know. Got a little bit more informed by reading Kurt Siskiyou report. So it's just another one of those things that we're having to deal with. So thank you very much, Sherry. Moving on to 6.2, the financial report for NUHCS and NUSCS. Tammy?
Hi there, you guys. Just your basic monthly spendings of what we have for Humboldt at this time. And that would include payroll and accounts receivable.
The month of April. No, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Bianca, what was it that came? Oh, it printed weird. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That was Siskiyou.
Right.
Yeah, the
Right.
Siskiyou one came out weird.
Right. It was very odd. I was like,
It was.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked about that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So I have a question. Everything looks great. I'm wondering overall if there's been thought, when I go through it, just as with, other institutions and businesses, facilities is always a high cost. Have there been any conversations with our note holders, our landlords and what have you? Have there been any conversations about possibly lowering the rent or,
No.
Yes, we have been. It's funny. Kirk and I are smiling because we had a long conversation about this and worked on kind of trying to come up with a kind of a template of how to approach them. I've already started doing that over on the Humboldt side. And so Kirk and I spoke today about how to deal with it with the Siskiyou landlords. And I think we have a plan of action to, attempt, we have discussed multiple options. One is possibly lowering the current rent payment. All of our leases run up at the end of June. And so it's time now to start looking at signing new leases. So, we're entering into negotiations on all of those. And so we're talking about either trying to get a reduction in our rent or going month to month, just in case something, happens, mid-year cuts or something like that. Or it seemed like there was another option now that has escaped me. Kirk, what is the other option? It seemed like there was something else. There's more. I know there's more, but I don't remember what the other thing was. But anyway, so
or just letting go of.
That was what it was. We're considering letting go of two of our facilities, one in Humboldt and one in Siskiyou. Okay. And so that's something else that we are talking about doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any, I haven't looked into it, but is there any support out there for educational institutions as far as rent goes or mortgages go? I know for individuals there is, and I know for small businesses and nonprofits that there are. But what about for us?
Are you referring to because of the pandemic right now?
Yeah.
Like, is that what you mean by like things? Yeah.
Yeah, by support, yeah.
Right. No, there's not. And, paying for our leases currently is not the issue. Where, what the amount of money that we were apportioned for this year is not changing. So current fiscal year, we're okay. It's for looking ahead at next year and thinking that our apportionments are going to be significantly lower than they were this year. We're looking at ways to save costs for next year. And we're looking at all options, all of the, agreements or contracts and things that we currently have, definitely, as Jere mentioned, we'll be approaching them on a case-by-case basis to decide if it's something we need or not, or can do away with. But yeah, and we're definitely doing it with the leases.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in my mind, knowing that we are okay now, it would just be a matter of, if there was financial support out there, it'd be a matter of sort of stacking our reserve stacking our coffers for that impending.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I think that answers it pretty well. Thank you.
Any other comments? So let me ask Tammy a question right now. What's our reserve? And what percent of that is it of our budget?
At this time, I don't have that in front of me, so I can't tell you what my reserve is.
We're required to have 10% by each of our authorizers through our MOU.
And at this time, we have over that. When we did our SB 740, I think we had 10%, but we also had a little more. Remember that we had to do the percentage of what our authorizer wanted, and then the rest of it, which was an ending, a balance for economic uncertainties.
Yeah.
But that's changed since then, and that was 4 months ago.
Yeah.
I could get this answer and email it to you guys. Is that?
Well, that would be fine if you'd like. And I suspect that next month's board meeting, when we start dealing with the budget, hold our public hearing and then adopt the budget, that's when it'll become an important bit of information,
right,
for all of us to know. So, okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tammy. Moving on to 6.3, the director's report. Take it away, Sherry.
Well, I've been teasing it all night. I was going to talk about the budget. Today was the May revise, which is when the governor comes out with his revised budget. You know, the way that it works is in January, he gives a budget proposal, what he thinks the budget will look like for the next fiscal year. And then in May, he gives a revision of that, because as we've gotten closer to that fiscal year, he's been able to fine tune it a little bit. Well, so today was the day for the May revise. When he gave the January budget, he expected we would have a surplus of $5.6 billion. Well, today all that surplus is gone. There's zero surplus left, and he's anticipating a pretty substantial shortfall, as you can imagine. What it means ultimately to schools is that right now, the estimate is that it is a 10% cut in our LCFF funding. So just to give a little reminder, the way schools are funded is in several different categories. The largest is from the state in what's called LCFF, and it's Local Control Funding Formula. And it's the formula that the state uses to determine how much money each school is going to get, the apportionment that they'll get per student, or per ADA, actually. That's the bulk of the money we get. We also get some money from the state lottery. We also get some local monies from property taxes. And we get very little federal dollars. In particular, California gets very little federal money. So the bulk of our money comes from LCFF, and that's what's anticipated to receive a 10% cut. In addition to that, as you can imagine, lottery sales are way down. So our lottery money is anticipated to be much less, though I haven't heard an estimate of what that's going to be cut. So the state is definitely, the May revision looks, you know, much worse than what the January proposal did. But they also say it's, you know, while they know it's not going to be good, it's hard to be very certain on how it's going to look because of a couple reasons. One is the fiscal quarter we're in right now, they haven't gotten sales tax for it yet because the quarter hasn't ended. Obviously, the quarter isn't up, so they don't really know what this quarter is going to look like, but they know it's going to be bad. So it could, potentially be worse than this. Also, all of the taxes, federal and state income taxes the deadline was extended. So those haven't come in yet, like our state income taxes haven't come in yet completely. So that's another revenue that they don't know what it's going to look like. So that's why it's really, the assumptions they're using are pretty unstable, more so than they normally are, just because this is unprecedented times. But there's no doubt that it's going to be rough. So, for example, on the Humboldt side, our budget is just under 5 million. It's like 4.8 million. So cutting that by over 10%, because like I said, LCFF is going to be cut by 10%, and then lottery and some other things, is really significant. And so I've been spending a lot of time looking at areas in which we can try to, cover that shortfall. One of the other pieces that was a little bit of good news from the May revise is that he's proposing covering some of the STRS and PERS rate increases. So you guys know CalSTRS is the California State Teacher Retirement System, and CalPERS is the California Public Employee Retirement System. STRS is what all the teachers are members of, and PERS is what everybody who's not a teacher basically is part of, everyone who's not certificated anyway. So that would be any instructional aides or maintenance or janitorial or bus drivers or secretaries, anything like that are in PERS. Those rates, those accounts are very underfunded. And so to cover the shortfall for the last several years, every year we've been paying a little more to try to cover up the shortfall. Well, he proposed not increasing those this year as were supposed to be increased in an attempt to save some money. So that's a little bit of good news. And then another little piece of good news is in the January proposal, he had proposed equalizing, not exactly equalizing, but attempting to work toward equalization of the special ed funding. So the state is divided up into areas, for special ed purposes, divided up into areas that they refer to as SELPAs. And it's special ed, local planning, I don't know what it is. I don't remember what the A is. Areas. A is area.
Area.
Yeah, area. Thank you, Val. But anyway, the state's divided up into SELPAs, and all the SELPAs are funded differently. Not everybody gets the same rate, and it was based on something that was determined many years ago, is how they determine how much money your SELPA is going to get. Well, when our SELPA, the Humboldt SELPA, I should say, when the Humboldt SELPA's rate was determined, at that time, their special ed was very low. There weren't a lot of special ed students in Humboldt County. Over the years, that has drastically changed. We now have the highest number of special ed students in the state. Humboldt County does. But yet we are the lowest funded SELPA in the state. So Siskiyou is not in that situation. Siskiyou is actually, because it's so small, they get special funding for being a small SELPA, and so they're highly funded. But Humboldt is very low funded. And so there's been a push to try to rebar this, to try to equalize the different SELPAs. The SELPAs that are paid highly don't want to do that because they'll come down, and the SELPAs that are paid low want to do it so that they'll come up. And so in the January proposal, he had proposed trying to equalize that somewhat, and that is still in the May revise. So that's encouraging. That could help us in with special ed costs. So that was kind of the two bright spots, but really the negative of the state's economy outweighs any good that those things will do, but it will help. Some of the things that are being talked about, because we know that schools are going to be so drastically cut for this upcoming year, they're proposing using some of the same tools that we were allowed to use during the Great Recession in 2008. And some of those tools were things like flex funding. So sometimes there's money that schools get that are earmarked or restricted for certain things. Well, in times like this of recession time, they take that restriction off, and they let us sweep those funds into our general fund and let us use that for other things. And so they're proposing that again this year, though we don't have as many categoricals as we used to. Another thing that's being proposed, and none of this is set in stone, but some of the proposals are shortening the length of the school year next year, which is something that was done during the Great Recession. Right now, what's required is 180 school days. During the Great Recession, that went down to 175 to try to save costs. Another thing that was done during the Great Recession that could be done again is furlough days. So at that time, we took 5 days unpaid. We worked 5 days unpaid. That is something else that could happen again this year. And probably the biggest one that the state gets to use, their biggest tool that they get to use in times of this, that it does not help us, it hurts us, we don't get this option, is they do what they refer to as deferrals, which means essentially deferring the payments they would normally pay us. There's an apportionment schedule that the state pays schools. You don't get all the money like at the beginning of the year. You get a certain percentage at this month, and then a certain percentage later, and a certain percentage later, and that happens throughout the year. And so what they do with deferrals is, let's say you're supposed to get a payment in August. They basically say, we're going to owe you. We're going to give you an IOU, and instead of giving you the money in August, we're going to give it to you in November, or whenever, because at that point the state will have more money because they'll have gotten their property taxes at that point. So they put off paying things, until after they get either sales tax or property tax or something like that in. But what that means for us, we can't tell our creditors, we're going to defer this payment. That's not an option for us. So it creates a real cash problem, a cash flow issue. We don't always have the cash we need when they do that. And they've already let us know that they're going to start doing that now. So the apportionment that we should get in June, they've already let us know they're not going to give us that till July. And it's a shell game, because that crosses 2 fiscal years. So they're able to close their books out at the end of this fiscal year with money, not in the red. And then as soon as the new fiscal year happens, they pay us what they owed us from this year. And so they're already letting us know that that's going to happen, the June to July deferral. But then we can expect some during next fiscal year. We can expect them within the year as well. So that is kind of a little synopsis of the state of the economy right now, which, is just, it's not looking pretty at all. And, it's so unfortunate. The staff, we've been talking a lot about how unfortunate this is right now, because we've just had this, or are currently in a worldwide pandemic. And students are losing education time right now. We're trying to do as good of a job as we can, but it's not the same as seeing students on a regular basis. And now we're going into this next year knowing that at the time our students are going to need us most, the things that are going to have to be cut are the things that they would most need right now. It's very difficult to cut teachers because we need the teachers for the students. You start looking elsewhere, other things when you're looking at cutting, and unfortunately, those kind of extra services are the things that students are going to need most right now. The intervention programs that we have instituted, the content area specialists that we have, the extra school psychologists, the extra counseling, all of those things that we have built up over the last few years, those are the areas that students are going to need the most. In addition to that, when students do come back, we're going to have some significant increases in our cost to keep employees and students safe. So cleaning supplies, staff to do the cleaning, masks, thermometers, gloves, hand sanitizers, all of those kinds of things that we're going to need are all additional costs but with less money to cover those costs. So it's going to be a rough couple years, there's no doubt. So that's my sunshine report. There are a few other things that I wanted to talk about in my report today. I wanted to let you guys know that in both schools, we've created a new grading criteria. I don't know if I shared that last time or not, but anyway, we have created a new grading criteria for our students because of all of the distance learning that's happening now. And essentially the basis of it is no student will be harmed because of what has happened with this closure. So no one can get less of a grade than they did when we closed school, but they can take this opportunity to increase their grade, to raise their grade. So that's one of the things that we've been working on. Both schools have also been working extensively on our graduation plans, and those have really tightened up. I know the SISCU report that's in your packet had a pretty extensive summary of what that graduation was going to look like. The Humboldt one is going to be a drive-in look. You know, all the cars are going to be parked, and everybody's going to be in their car facing the stage, where I'll be on the stage and our keynote speaker will be on our stage, and potentially our counselor, but that's it, all 6 feet apart from each other. So it'll be a kind of a distance, I don't know, social distancing graduation that will be happening. The LCAP is, for those of you who don't know, the LCAP is the Local Control Accountability Plan. And what that is it's a plan that we put in place in advance for the next year that talks about what our goals are for the next year and how we're going to meet those goals, what actions we're going to take to meet those goals. And it is tied in with our budget so that it shows like what resources we're putting to each of these actions. So it's a plan that combines kind of the programmatic side of the school, how we're, you know, what we're doing, with the fiscal side of the school, our budget. And so the LCAP is something that we do every year, adopt that plan in advance of the next year. Well, because of the pandemic, the state has eliminated that requirement for this year. So we are not doing an LCAP. And in its place, we're doing something called the COVID-19 Operations Written Report. And I'm sorry, it doesn't have a cute acronym. But it is a report that you'll see next month at the June board meeting, because it has to be adopted by the board. And it's pretty short. There's 5 questions that they ask, and it's basically to address this pandemic time. You know, when the governor put his shelter-in-place order in place, his executive order, he told the schools they still had to do some things. We still have to offer distance learning of some sort, you know, some sort of educational opportunity for students. We still have to offer food, and we still have to offer childcare or supervision during the school day. And so this report addresses how we're doing that. What did your school do? You know, what changes or what impact did the closure have on your school, and how are you addressing those items? And they specifically ask us to also keep in mind students who are English learners, students who are low income, and students who qualify for special education. And they ask us to address, and our foster and homeless youth as well. So they ask us to address those students as well in this report. So this week, both schools, we've worked on those, and they will be ready for you to see when you get your board packet in June, where we have answered those questions. So that's what we're doing instead of LCAP this year. And then what they're having us do for next year, since we wouldn't have an LCAP in place to cover us for next year, they're asking us to do that in the fall, and it will be adopted in December. So in December of next school year, you'll see the LCAP for next year. So part of this school year will have already passed when you see that LCAP, but that's what they're asking us to do for next year. And then for the years out, it's back onto our regular LCAP schedule. So that's kind of an update with the LCAP. The other thing that we have been working a lot on is our plans for reopening in the fall. And I think I've mentioned this before, it's difficult to make these plans when we don't really know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the state is, of the pandemic is going to be. And so what we have discussed is essentially having 3 plans in your back pocket right now. One of, if we have this miracle vaccine that happens and we're able to open up business as usual, totally normal. Another one that's if it's some sort of hybrid, we're able to open up but with fewer students because of social distancing, so not being able to have as many students at a facility at the same time, having a plan for that. And then the third plan would be having a plan for continuing what we're doing now, 100% 100% distance learning. So, that middle plan, which is the one that I think is probably the most likely scenario, which is kind of a hybrid of what we're doing and normal right now, is the one that probably requires the most attention and the most planning, because it requires a lot of ordering, like I spoke of before, getting the thermometers that take the temperature of the forehead of everybody, ordering the sneeze guards at people's desks, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, all of those kinds of things. Figuring out the master schedule of each of the learning center. How are you going to arrange your schedule so that you have the appropriate number of students and adults on campus at the same time? These are the things that we're working on actively right now. And then I think the last thing that I wanted to cover, I'm sorry this is so lengthy, the last thing that I wanted to talk about, this is really kind of more of a discussion item that I wanted to talk to the board about to get your feedback on. So and this has to do with the Siskiyou schools batches. And so our current board members or our board members that have been with us for a while know we usually refer to these as the golden rods. It's because it's printed on goldenrod paper. So last meeting, I believe I mentioned that Vivian was looking into DocuSign, and she, I think, emailed you guys kind of a test on that. So I wanted to talk about that because guess what? DocuSign costs money. So I don't know if that's something that we want to take on right now, but I'm willing, we can discuss that. And so, but Vivian and I came up with an alternative solution that wouldn't cost money. So I want to give you guys the option, and we can discuss it and see what you think. Okay, so let me walk through this process for Jeff and Kevin's benefit too. What happens is when in Siskiyou, when Vivian, who is our accounts payable purchasing person, when she is running checks for things that she needs to pay for the school, it's all done within Siskiyou County Office of Ed's system, within their fiscal financial system. And so she creates a batch, which basically is her logging into their system and entering all the things that she needs to create a check for. So let's say she needs to pay the leases this month, maybe utility bills, whatever. She goes in, logs in, opens up this batch, puts everything in that she needs a check created for. Then, after she gets it all together and ready to go, she prints out a copy of all of it with all the background information. She sends it to me to review, and to Tammy too, I think, wherever Tammy is. We review it. We make sure that, things like the budget strings are appropriate. We make sure, that everything seems correct. And then I sign it, and I sign it on this piece of paper. It's not goldenrod at that point. It's just a plain piece of paper. I send it back to her, and my signature on there is what lets Siskiyou County Office of Ed know that it's okay to run this now. It's been approved. And so they cut the checks. Vivian picks up the checks, mails them out. Then what happens is at our next board meeting, all the ones of these that I have signed over the course of the month come to you guys. You guys see it and approve it. That happened during our consent agenda. So the item that's consideration of approval for warrants and payroll, that's what that is. Approving the warrants is approving all of those batches that we've had run over the month. Siskiyou County requires that every board member sign on here below my name. And so what has traditionally happened is after the board meeting, I have all the board members sign that. We send it back to Siskiyou. Well, with this social distancing, that has not been it's been difficult to do that. And so Siskiyou County has said that it's okay if either we use DocuSign now to do that. They're not requiring a wet signature as they were before. So we can use DocuSign. And before, every board member and I had to sign on the same piece of paper. Well, they're not requiring that now. Now they're letting everybody, each board member, sign on their own piece of paper, and they're going to just attach them all. So they would have 5 of these, plus mine, I guess, 6 of these for one batch, rather than one piece of paper for one batch. So what Vivian and I discussed is, instead of doing DocuSign, if we didn't want to take on that cost right now, we could just, when we get all of these before the board meeting, when I send you your board packet, I could include these as an attachment. But what it would require then is each board member individually print them off at their own house or wherever they want to, sign them, scan them, and email them back to me. And then I would email them all back to Vivian to print on the goldenrod paper. So those are kind of the options. Do we pay for DocuSign and have DocuSign to do these signatures, or do you guys each individually print your own, sign it, scan it, and email it to me?
I like option number 2.
The free option?
The free option. And if we could pick a different color than goldenrod, because goldenrod isn't recyclable.
Well, that we wouldn't ever even, like, you wouldn't print it off on goldenrod.
No,
you would print it off on regular. It wouldn't become goldenrod until it got to them, to Siskiyou. If they want it on yellow paper, that's up to them. But we wouldn't have to make it goldenrod.
I like the free option.
Well, let me ask each of you. So I've heard from Rosemary, Kevin, Jeff, Bianca, and Jere. Do you guys have any issues with like printing and scanning? Do you have access to be able to do that? Like either at your home, or would you need a printer that scans?
I have no problem with printing, signing, and scanning.
Okay.
I don't have a problem printing. I don't have anything to scan with.
You don't have a scanner. Well, Wendy could bring it to work and scan it.
Okay.
The current smartphones, the last 2 seasons of them, have the scanning option on your camera.
Oh.
And there's also Genius Scan, which is a free app that's really easy to put on your phone.
How expensive is DocuSign?
Okay, that's a good question, and I meant to say that. I'm sorry. It's not super expensive. It's $25 a month for one user. And Vivian would be the only user. If we wanted more users, then we have to pay, it's $25 per person that uses it. But when you're a receiver, you don't pay. It's only the sender. So when, Vivian's account would be $25 a month. And it's an annual charge. So it's actually like $300 for the year, 300 something for the year.
That's not very much.
It's not a ton. It's not a ton.
I'm wondering.
I'll contribute to that.
Yeah, really.
I'm wondering if
In so many
DocuSign
ways.
is pay for other documents in the future, considering the state of our
Vivian, right. Vivian and I talked about that. Like, what else would we possibly have DocuSign right now? Would it come in use? And I have to tell you, the reason we've never used DocuSign before is because our auditor doesn't allow it. They only will take wet signatures. These goldenrod things are not something that our auditor reviews. They don't care about these. This is an internal thing that Siskiyou County office does. So that's why DocuSign would be okay for that. But things that, like other paperwork right now, if it's something that our auditor would review, as of right now, they're not allowing DocuSign. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to change because of this happening.
Yes.
Right. Well, we can get DocuSign at any time as well. It's not going anywhere.
So how about we try, I have a proposal. How about we try the free route this next month and see how it goes? Because you're right, we could get DocuSign anytime. Does that sound okay?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So for June, when I send you the agenda and the board packet, you will also get an attachment of these. And you'll just print them off, sign them, scan them, and email them to me. Jerry, your hand's up.
So it makes no difference now then that our signatures be in blue ink. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want the clarification because I could scan in color and it would show the blue signature.
It's still a copy, though. It's not the color that was the issue. The deal with blue ink is that shows it's the original.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it could be pink ink.
Okay.
It could be any color ink as long as you can tell it's an original. But if it's a copy, it doesn't matter what color it is. It's not an original. That's it for my report.
Okay. It appears that, yeah. Okay. It appears that the consensus is that's the way we'll proceed with signing documents for Siskiyou County.
Yeah, we'll try
Thank
3.
you, Sherry. Any questions for Sherry before we move on?
Oh, you know what? One more thing. Thank you, Kirk. He just texted me a reminder of something I wanted to say or that I should have said. I'm sorry, I didn't say this. With the budget, the state budget, one of the things that the governor did mention in the revise today is if the federal government does some sort of state bailout, then that could backfill the shortage that we'd be having. You know, that's something that's been being discussed is whether or not the federal government is going to give any money to the states to help cover the cost associated with the pandemic. And that's something that's being debated right now by the feds. So if in fact that does happen, that could help offset the deep cuts that we would be experiencing next year.
Okay. Sherry, I wanted to ask you about Prop 98.
Yeah.
Is it correct that last year or previously we were overfunded through Prop 98 and that we're going to have to pay back money?
That's what we've been told. That's what we heard is that for current year, not last year, but the current year, that Prop 98 was overfunded to an amount, the 3 point something, I have it written down over here. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember it comes out to about $500 per student was what all schools were overfunded for current year. And so at the January proposal, before we had this pandemic or anything, the plan was to cut our funding for next year by that $500 per student. That was already part of the plan prior to this pandemic. So it's kind of a double whammy that has happened.
Okay, well, thank you. The other comment I wanted to make pertains to graduation, the plan for graduation. So there's no board member involved in that ceremony?
Well, if you want to
recall,
come,
last year,
you are welcome. You are welcome to come, Jerry. If you want to come, you can. And Kirk has asked, and Kirk, I know you were probably going to say this.
I'm going to talk about this in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, Kirk was going to invite you. He's got a solution for you of not being able to actually attend for the Siskiyou one during his report. But at the Humboldt one, if any board member wants to come, you're always invited to come to the graduation. We are limited because of social distancing with how many people we can have on the stage. I'm using air quotes because it's not really actually a stage. And the number of microphones in terms of speakers, we're not shaking hands with anybody or anything. And we have a limited number of microphones. We've been able to secure 4, so we can have 4 different speakers without having to sterilize the microphones in between.
Okay. So, I mean, you recall that I attended, and I handed
So
out
Rosemary.
the diplomas, or
Yeah.
So
And we're not handing out diplomas
So anyway,
this year because we can't touch. So they're picking up a bag.
Yeah,
is what's
right.
happening.
Yeah.
How are they picking up
Good.
that bag?
They're
gonna
going to
pick
have
a bag.
bags pre-stuffed, and inside their bag is the scroll that's their fake diploma. You know, the real
yeah.
diploma is actually mailed. So the
Okay.
scroll that's their fake diploma, a cookie that has a customized cookie. That's something Wendy is working on, in a cellophane bag inside their bag. A rose for to be able to give. We're calling it a rose, a resiliency rose, to show appreciation to them. For their resiliency during this time, being able to graduate during this. And their awards would be in there, all labeled with their name on it, on a table. And when their name is called, they come up, and the table is 6 feet away from me. And when they come up, they pick up the bag with their name on it.
And what does
It'll
8th grade graduation look like?
Parade style, I think.
It's going to be very, very similar, Rosemary. And I'm actually drafting a letter with the details, and I'll email it out. I'll be sure to include you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will be drafting a letter to Rosemary as to what, the policies and the procedures are, because, there are a lot of things to take into consideration, in regards to the social distancing and being sure that, we're not touching things and touching one another. And the teachers are used to giving speeches about their students, but we've decided to pre-record those so that we are not the kids don't hug us, so we don't hug them. So there will be a sound system with the pre-recorded speeches and all of that on there. So it should be pretty cool. It's going to be different, but it should be pretty cool.
And are both of these graduations limited to just the student and their immediate family in their car?
The high school one is one car. Each graduate gets one car.
Uh-huh.
The reason behind that, obviously, is,
Space.
social distancing, as well as space.
Right.
Our parking lot can only fit 25 cars, approximately. So it worked out perfect.
Are these graduations going to be videotaped? Both at the Humboldt side and the Siskiyou side?
Ours is going live, and it's live stream. So it can be seen by all family members that are not there. It'll be live streamed, and then I'm sure we'll probably record it as well. Somebody will probably record it as well. That's for us. Rebecca, I don't know.
Rosemary, it'll be the graduate's car and one additional car for 8th grade.
And where will the 8th grade graduation be held?
At the Cutton Learning Center.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a parade style.
What's the date?
I don't have confirmation from my landlord, but I'm shooting for Tuesday, June 2nd at 3:00.
For the 8th grade. And for the high school, it's Wednesday, June 10th.
At 3
o'clock. And then in Siskiyou, it's Sunday, June 7th at 2 o'clock. Is that right, Kirk?
3.
3.
I'll talk about that a little bit during my report.
Okay.
For the Humboldt June 10th high school, if we wanted as board members to add something to the bag, what would be the last day that you would like that?
That is a good question. Let me look, because we have a deadline. I put a date as to when those bags have to be all put together. Let me see, and I'll tell you.
Well, the bags are being picked up, I think, the 1st or 2nd of June.
No. There's 2 bags. That's the bag with the cap and gown.
Oh.
The bag that they get for their diploma is where we would add something.
Yeah.
That one is done. Let's see. Yeah, June 5th is when their cap and gowns are getting delivered to them. But the bags that Wendy's putting together, we didn't put a date. Really, it would just have to be, before the 10th. It could be as late as the 9th, honestly. There's only I think 22 graduates, and I think 20 of them are participating in the ceremony. So it's only 20 bags. It's not a lot.
Sherry, I think we had discussed that when we dropped off their gowns and stuff, we wanted all that stuff in the bag because they're going to decorate their cars.
Yeah, that's the streamers. That's going to be in the bag. The bag they pick up the day of.
Oh, that bag. Yeah, that bag is.
Yeah, there's 2 different bags.
That's right. You're right.
Bag lady.
That's right. We are going to be the bag ladies.
No comment.
Okay. Is there anything further pertaining to graduation? And if not, thank you again, Sherry, for your report. Moving on to 6.4, Northern United Humboldt Charter School. Julie.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly say one of the fun things about graduation that we are doing that's going to make it even more exciting is that we're giving the kids stuff to decorate their cars. So when they come in, the cars are going to be all decorated with paint, car paint, obviously. There's going to be streamers. We're also looking at putting yard signs on the driveway up where the kids' names will be on it. So it's going to be kind of the old-fashioned drive-in look, but kind of festive in that way. So that's going to be really fun. We're trying to make it really honor the kids in a fun way. Sherry's going to be under a tent. We're going to have balloons flying, helium balloons flying and that type of thing. So it should be festive and fun. Other than the graduation, as Sherry said, we've been working on the COVID-19 operational report, which I found it to be kind of interesting, because it's almost like a self-reflection piece that we get to look at and see what we've done well and what we might need to improve upon. And that's kind of what when we did the report this week, I felt it was kind of helpful to really look at how well we've done and also to look ahead at some of the things that we might need to be putting into place for next school year if things are not normal and business as usual. So that was kind of interesting. And then the last thing that I really want to say that I think has been probably, if the board members who've been here for a while remember our coffee with colleagues, and that was not maybe one of the best meetings that we ever were able to put on. However, one of the things that Sherry has instituted and we've worked to put together is we're having weekly staff meetings via Zoom. And I'm not kidding you. Those things are so well attended. People are coming in, from the time, 15 minutes early, and we can't get them out of there 15 minutes after the meeting is going over. And it's just, people are so glad to see one another, to share what they're doing, to talk about, next year, to share best practices. And I just want to say that this has been a really great time to bond with everybody, but it also has been a really neat, enlightening. I mean, I shouldn't be enlightened. I've worked here forever, but it reminds me how much we all like each other. Mm-hmm. And people just like each other who work at this organization. And you know what? I can say with all honesty, there are just so many people that don't like where they work or who they work with. And we are so blessed and so fortunate. And you know what? You board members, we need to invite you to our Friday staff because you guys will come in and you're going to think it's amazing too. So other than that, I don't have a lot to say other than, you know, we're doing a great job all around, I think. And the centers are, not the centers, we're closed, but everybody is just really doing a great job right now. And the kids are overall just being serviced really well. And I'm proud of us. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Any comments or questions for Julie?
How many kids are graduating?
21.
Well, I'll just one comment. I'll concur Friday's meetings, because there's been a few times I've had to come into the office and tell Wendy to hold it down a little bit. Ray and I were trying to do something up in the rest of the house. So yeah, it gets out of control.
There are even themes. I think one time we had hat theme. Everybody was wearing their hats, and I mean, you know, trying to find funny things. There you go, Karen.
Well, this last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and Rebecca is absolutely amazing at these kinds of things. And so she facilitated putting together a slideshow from all of the admin to the staff, like to say thank you. And not only did she put together this slideshow that we sent out to everybody, but she also told everybody that at our Friday staff meeting to come prepared for a party. So if that meant like streamers or balloons or whatever, you know, come dressed for a party, bring your party. And then she did some funny things too, where she said, in honor of, you know, our appreciation to you or whatever, you're going to get some presents kind of, or something. And it was like, you're going to get a front row parking place at work. You're going to get to take an hour for lunch. You're gonna, what was some of the other stuff, Rebecca? It was really cute, but it was, you know.
Pajamas to work day.
Oh yeah, wear your pajamas to work. It's all the stuff that we were doing anyway, because we're at home.
Bring your pet to work.
Yeah.
Which is happening every day. So yeah, it was great. It's great.
That's awesome.
Well, good. Well, thank you. 6.5, Northern United Siskiyou Charter School Report. Kurt?
Hello. So you saw I submitted a couple of things for the packet, one of which is just sort of a description. You know, I realized that what I wrote in the board packet was a lot of what I put on the COVID-19 report that we did this week, really sort of describing about how we responded.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see some of that language again when you see the COVID-19 report next month. And then the other thing I included in the packet was kind of a rundown of how the Siskiyou graduation is going to look. And so I just wanted to talk about that briefly and, you know, tell you how you can get involved. So it's going to be a movie, pre-recorded and then edited together. And live streamed on June 7th at 3 o'clock, which is like the traditional time that we have our graduation, that sort of first Sunday in June at 3 o'clock. And, but it's all going to be pre-recorded. There'll be really nothing live about it other than maybe when we start the Zoom session, I'll kind of welcome everybody and then start playing the movie, and it'll be, you know, streamed on Zoom and on YouTube, so anybody in the world could watch it that wants to. And all the parts are pre-recorded. So the students are all recording. In fact, I'm going to the park in Wairika tomorrow to record students walking along this beautiful path that I'll edit together with pomp and circumstance as they're walking into the graduation. Then and I'm going to talk to you about this, Sherry. I need to get you to record yourself handing a rolled up piece of paper off screen, right? And then I'm going to record them having somebody hand them a rolled up piece of paper, you know, and then they'll turn their, well, no, that comes later, but I'm going to record them turning their tassel and throwing the hat in the air. So when it comes time for that, there's 18 graduates participating. We also had 22 graduating students. When it comes comes time for the tassel turn, you'll see all 18 in tiles, like Brady Bunch style on the screen, kind of what it looks like now if you're on gallery view, all turning their tassel at the same time, and then throwing their hat in the air at the same time. And I'll get the teachers to record their speeches about each student. And while the teacher speech is playing in the movie, you'll see the photos of the students when they were babies and or toddlers and elementary students and current students, maybe a photo of them in their cap and gown or some other little fun thing that they want to submit. So I got to get those teacher things recorded. But then anybody that wants to be a speaker, student speakers, or a keynote speaker or anything like that, or if any board members want to say something with graduation, all I need to get you to do is record yourself. You can do a selfie or, you know, on your webcam or something, just record yourself and get it to me, or we can set up maybe a Zoom meeting and you can give your speech to me and I can record it and then download it onto my computer and then edit it into the movie. And we're also then, we're getting the a yard sign, you know, congratulating, customized with each student's first name on the sign and the web address of the live stream on the sign. And we're going to provide each of them with a small, like, you know, 1/8 of a big sheet cake, but a small piece of cake so that they can have viewing parties at home and they can still have the traditional graduation cake. We went to the dollar store and got a ton of decorations so they can decorate their homes for their viewing party. And the roses, we're actually going to then deliver the roses, like a half a dozen roses to each kid so that they can also, at the viewing party during that rose ceremony time, you know, hand the roses to family members if they want to. Can't think of anything else, but I guess that was the main thing I wanted to mention to anybody that wants to say something. Just talk to me afterwards and we'll arrange how to make that happen. Then the other thing I wanted to add was something I meant to add in my written report that Lindsay reminded me of earlier, is something that she started doing a few weeks ago in Wairika, is having a student of the week. But what she's asking is for parents to send remind notifications, and Remind, for those of you that don't know, is like the school-wide notification app that we use. So parents send her nomination forms via Remind for their students, and so that Lindsay contacts them and talks with them about why their kid should be nominated, and it really provides an opportunity to build a dialogue with parents. She gets to interact with them and thank them for noticing the good things in their child. It's a very PBIS kind of oriented thing. We're trying to get parents to not focus on why are you doing that or whatever, but focus more on the positive things. And each week has a different focus. And so this week's that she was getting all her nominations turned in today are about is focusing on showing initiative, strong communication, using encouraging words, and asking good questions while they're on their Zoom class meetings with their fellow classmates. So, yeah, I think it's been a really positive way to interact with parents and families and get them to focus on the positives that are happening at home. And that's focused right now in our Wairika Learning Center.
Awesome.
That's all I have.
Who's doing all the editing?
Well, thank you, Gert.
Kirk.
Oh,
I have software. I have cameras and software, and I've always been presenting slideshows and movies, really making movies for the graduation ceremonies to this point. So I'm actually taking it to the next level, and it'll take me a lot more time. But I have done some trial runs, making sure that I can get those different tiles happening synchronized. Oh yeah, that was the other thing too. I consulted with a friend who owns a videography company, and he suggested trying to get some way for the kids to interact with each other. So like I'm thinking about taking a graduation cap and maybe a silver marker and have them write their name on the cap and then hand it off screen, and then the person who's in the next tile reaches the other way, grabs it and adds their name to it, and then passes it off, and or something like that. Or maybe everybody kind of doing the wave or something and editing it together so it looks like they're interacting with each other on screen, but they're not really.
It's kind of like the Brady Bunch at the beginning of the show, where they look down at each other. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just want to thank the 3 directors. Graduation is a huge undertaking when things are in a normal setting. We do not have that right now, and it sounds like you folks are going to make this class of 2020 very, very special for their promotion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I kind of viewed it. You know, most kids are going through some severely altered graduation right now. So let's embrace that and just really run with it and try to find a way to help them bond with each other and other schools that are out there kind of having to do the same thing and just be the first ever virtual graduating class.
Uh-huh.
So
what about the Siskiyou 8th graders?
I'm not sure. We have very few, and Colleen was trying to organize something in Wairika, and honestly, I'm not sure where she is with that. So I could find out and let you know, Roxy, but I mean, I think there's maybe 4 or 5
curious.
kids.
Yeah.
4 or 5 kids, so we could almost have a little party for them in social distance and not really be breaking any rules, you know. So.
Sure.
Well, you could even congratulate them for the most senior skip days too, and successfully.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, is there anything else for Kurt?
No, that was everything.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kurt. Excellent job. Moving on to 6-6 board report. So let's start with Miss Bianca.
I really don't have anything to report. No, I do have a question though. Earlier, Sherry, when you were talking about next year, the hand sanitizer, the wipes, and the paper towels, the sneeze guard, all that, and planning and prepping, it sounds so far out. But with the planning and the prepping, I'm wondering how far and wide the discussions are going. Are you talking to other districts about what they're doing? Not that I'm necessarily worried about them, but I'm just curious, how are we generating ideas as to how we're going to move forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I've mentioned before, every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, Kirk and I attend a meeting with the Siskiyou County Office of Education, and all the superintendents and other charter leaders are present, and we have these conversations. And then on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, I do the same thing with Humboldt County, with the county superintendent and all the county superintendents and charter directors, and we have these conversations. In addition to that, I'm on there's a committee here at HCOE that is looking specifically at the reopening. There was a committee to look at like the grading for right now, and I was on that. So we're doing a lot of collaborating for sure. Lots of passing around of, created documents and things, sharing in ideas, and so yeah, there's been a lot of collaboration, and it's, that's been an interesting piece of it too, because in Siskiyou, normally we meet once a month, the county superintendent and all the county superintendents. It's the first Tuesday of every month we have these meetings. Well, since this has happened, it's become weekly. And then at HCOE, normally we meet 3 times a year. And since these meetings, we've been meeting weekly. So there's been a lot more collaboration than traditionally has happened. And I think we all need it. We're all needing to rely on each other right now. And both counties, we've worked very hard to present a unified front. So like the county offices are the ones, after much discussion with all of us, that's putting out like countywide press releases, or we're all kind of making decisions together. Like when we decided what day to close, we did that. And, it's been really nice collaborating so much. So yeah, that was a good question.
Okay. Thank you for indulging me that in my board report, but I don't have anything to report out.
Can I say something, one thing?
Go ahead, Julie.
Certainly.
I just wanted to say, a large portion of the planning too that needs to be taken into consideration. We are talking a lot about the kids, which obviously is super important, but staff needs to feel safe. And so one of the things that we've been encouraged to be talking to our staff about, and we are, is what are the things that are going to make our staff feel safe. Without teachers, there is no school. And most of the teachers are older, and many of them fall into the category of being immunocompromised possibly, or those types of things. So, the planning process, as Sherry said, is huge, and the scope is large, not just with kids and all the things that we need, but what do we need to do for our staff in order to make them feel safe? So those are conversations, Bianca, that are happening as well.
As they should be. I appreciate you giving it the attention it deserves.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Rosemary.
I have nothing this time.
Okay. Jeff, do you have anything to say or report out?
Just a quick comment. It kind of has to do a little bit with what Sherry said about the planning for next year. Because Henry attends Eureka High School, we're in special needs part of the school. We're kind of privy to a lot more information on the public side as well. Partly because I volunteer there quite a bit, but it's kind of interesting to see they're moving the same direction that you were talking about today. It's going to be kind of a modified a version of kind of what we're doing right now, and that's where they're planning. They're putting all their eggs kind of in that basket. So it's just it'd just be interesting to see kind of how this thing shakes out.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for all your work.
Okay, thank you.
And attention. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Kevin.
Just want to say thank you to everybody being well prepared. It makes the meeting go a little bit smoother, and it helps us to be more knowledgeable about our decisions.
Thank you. The only thing that I want to bring up at this time, although it could also be a discussion item, is what comes next for our two board members. Sherry will certainly be in contact, and the logistics are going to be interesting, definitely different. But there's been a lot of hard work put into a board member handbook that covers everything you ever wanted to know about being a board member, a member of the Northern United Charter School Board of Directors. And I'm sure she'll be working on a plan to get you that, a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. She'll probably get you the Form 700 to fill out and sign and get back to her. And within the, and I'm sure there are other, minor things that I've missed, but most importantly, out of the handbook, things to focus on would be the Brown Act. One of the most critical aspects of the Brown Act is what they refer to as circular meetings, and that no more than 2 board members at a time can meet together, because it constitutes a board meeting. Also in that member handbook is section that covers the ethics of being a board member, the proper protocols for how to handle things that come to you, because there are definitely protocols and processes that have been in place. Plus, you'll be able to see the bylaws, and reading through that, you'll discover, that's the document that, among other things, governs how we operate, and so forth. So don't be feel overwhelmed when she hands you this massive binder, and a lot of work went into that, and a lot of input, and it's not necessarily the be all to end all. It definitely, just as with the bylaws, they can be amended and added to, but nonetheless, that's the next, I would say, the next critical step in your board membership and education. So, sorry to remind you, Sherry, of the task you have before you, and to work out the logistics in getting that done. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Moving on to item number 7, discussion items. Are there any discussion items? Sherry?
No, there are none this month. None on the agenda.
Okay. Any discussion item you'd like to throw out there, Tammy?
Is she still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. No.
Okay. How about you, Roxy?
No, thanks.
Linda?
Whoops.
Julie, since you buzzed in.
No, that was accidental. No, huh?
Okay. Any of the board members?
Nope.
Nothing from me.
Okay. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item number 8, next board meeting. 8.1, possible agenda items. Sherry, you want to give us your list?
Yeah, they're all on that background sheet that comes in your board packet, and it's the budget for Northern United Humboldt Charter School, the budget for Northern United Siskiyou Charter School, the LCAP COVID-19 operations written report for both schools. We'll put the A+, both schools A+ contracts back on there. There's a nursing agreement from Siskiyou that we need to sign. And those are the things that I can think of right now.
Thank you. Do any board members have potential agenda items?
Nothing.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
I have nothing.
Okay, very good then. 8.2, the next board meeting date is June 18th. All right?
And so this is something that I did want to talk about, Jerry, right here for the next board meeting. So earlier I mentioned, because they've done away with the LCAP, that having an LCAP always required us to have 2 June board meetings. Since they've done away with that requirement, we can now just have 1. So you may remember we had previously scheduled a meeting on the 18th and then again on the 19th. So I'm proposing we eliminate the 19th. We just have the 18th. So we do still have to have a public hearing for the budget, but the public hearing and the adoption can happen at the same meeting. They just have to be separate agenda items. So I would like for us to just have a meeting now on the 18th and not also the 19th. I just gave you a gift of time.
Yay!
Thank you.
Is that okay with everybody?
Is that acceptable to?
Very acceptable.
Okay.
I don't know.
Rosemary?
Who's going to be one in the crowd?
Hey, I'll still meet on the 19th if anybody wants to join me.
Tell us how it goes, Kurt. Tell us how it goes.
Have at it. Okay. Then it's settled. June 8th, just the June 18th. So at this point, Linda and Kirk, the next step is to adjourn the open session, and it is 6:22, and adjourn into closed session. And during closed session, the item that will be discussed is the conference with the labor negotiator, unrepresented employee, the charter director. In closed session, before we go into closed session, the public is invited to address the board regarding these items. As before, speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and the board is not allowed under the law to take action on any matters that are not on the agenda. Is there any comment before we adjourn and go to closed session? Okay. Then we'll close the open session portion and move into closed session.
Linda,
so thank you,
take the
everybody.
minutes.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, it's recording again.
Okay, it is 6:44, and we're reconvening into open session. The action I have to report is that Sherry's contract will be on the June, will be an action item.
Well, actually,
on
there's nothing to
the
report because
June
no
agenda.
action was taken. No action was taken, so there's nothing to
Take
report.
one. Okay.
You
All
would
right.
only report out if we
Um,
voted on something.
Right.
Like when we
Right,
voted
okay.
to approve the settlement agreement, for example. That's what you report out.
Yeah. But I was just thinking because, you know, we've decided to put it officially on the agenda, but that's okay. So there's no action to be reported. And so at 6:45, I adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
One.
That's all she wrote.